Here we all are again, another episode of Bat Show, it seems, yay. I just got done watching season 2 of Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal and I loved it. I didn't make a video on season 1, but I have made a video on Nathan Fielder, and that was when I reviewed his 2023 show The Curse, which was fantastic. The Curse was a fictitious drama, and that was a collaboration between Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder, but The Rehearsal is special because it's solely Nathan Fielder's baby.
This conversation's going pretty well.
Yes.
So that's no accident.
To introduce people watching this video who don't know what The Rehearsal is, it's hard to describe really. It's almost better if I don't define it, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway, just to ruin it. I say The Rehearsal is a strange hybrid between documentary, performance art, prank show, sociological study, character study. Simple synopsis, it follows Nathan Fielder, who is the presenter. He goes around finding people who are a little socially awkward, who struggle to communicate things in conversation or struggle to assert themselves in conversation. And what Nathan does to help these people is he stages these elaborate rehearsals of these said conversations that these people are dreading having, so that these people can practice for the real life event, so that they can predict all possible outcomes of what may happen. Thanks to the budget provided to Nathan Fielder by HBO, these recreations get very elaborate and grandiose. For episode 1 of season 1, the conversation that they're preparing for takes place in a particular bar, so what Nathan does is he completely reconstructs the same bar, only it's in a sound studio, but it's one-to-one, and this is done so that the client, so to speak, can immerse themselves in the rehearsal like it's the real thing. Now ultimately, as the show progresses, the scenarios that they're rehearsing for wind up getting bigger and bigger, both in scale and in importance, but all still revolves around that central idea of this recreation or simulation of reality or real life things that all act as rehearsals for someone who isn't very versed in socializing, I suppose. Now, season 2 takes things to a whole new level in that it's all about rehearsing for potential aeroplane flights so that they can avoid disaster, essentially. Now, there's actually a significant reason behind all this, which is that Nathan has been looking at all of these past airline disasters, and he's found this one correlation, this one repeating aspect, which he supposes is one of the causes for all of these crashes. His hypothesis is that these disasters may be occurring because there is a failure of communication in the cabin between the co-pilot and the captain. Namely, that the co-pilot lacked the confidence to challenge the captain on a potential mistake they may have made. In these past instances that Nathan Fielder refers to, you can see that there is this superiority complex between the captain and the co-pilot. Essentially, the co-pilot is at most times intimidated by the captain, or when they do raise the voice, the captain's like, "No, what are you talking about?" and kind of undermines them. So from that point forward, Nathan Fielder sets out creating these cockpit simulations where he has these two pilots, and what he wants to do is he wants to teach the co-pilot to be more assertive and the captain to be more responsive to criticism. And he's also doing this to gather evidence because he wants to submit this hypothesis to people as high as Congress. He is genuinely intent on making real change this season.
Mr. Fielder, where does your sense of altruism come from, where all of a sudden you want to save lives? You're known for pranking.
Now, you might have surmised this yourself, but due to the nature of the show and what it's about, all of this hyper-fixation on random, mundane human interactions, it's a very cathartic watch for the socially awkward type. I'll be elaborating on that more throughout this video, but yeah, the same is true for all of Nathan Fielder's works, really. I find a lot of catharsis from his art. Now, Fielder actually started off as a YouTuber where he did various skits, and then he eventually got given his own show, which was Nathan For You, and that was quite a big hit. And ever since then, his career has exponentially grown in scale, and that's a very good thing because he just gets more and more creative the more money he is given to play with. It went YouTube, Nathan For You, The Rehearsal Season 1, then The Curse, and The Curse is a fucking masterpiece. I love that show. I already talked about that on this channel though, so shut up. I'd also have no objection frustration with dubbing the first season of The Rehearsal as a masterpiece because there really just is nothing like it on television. And season 2 is just a high concept version of the first season, which also tackles issues relating to airline disasters. I don't know how much money HBO gave Nathan Fielder for this season, but it was a crap load. I believe this is what you call a blank check project. But Fielder put it all to good use to make something experimental, creative, grandiose, and also hopefully productive to society.
I do have some experience with creating elaborate role-playing scenarios.
Now obviously with all these rehearsals going on, there's a lot of mixing up between reality and fake reality. All of Fielder's works blend sincerity with satire, blend comedy with seriousness. The Curse, for instance, is both a black comedy, yet also a nightmarish psychological thriller. With The Rehearsal, it is quite easy to lose track of what is genuine, what is real, and what is staged. Nathan Fielder himself is quite the enigma. You never know when he's being 100% sincere or when he's just doing a bit. It's kind of like a Sam Hyde thing. So in The Rehearsal, he's sort of playing this exaggerated version of himself, this character almost. Even there, it becomes a mystery as to how exaggerated this persona is, like how close is this to his true self.
But I feel terrible about it, and I'm sorry. I want to say I'm sorry.
But because there is this hybrid tone of silly and serious, it can be quite brilliant because when it is taking itself seriously, it can reach some fairly profound heights, or at the very least meaningful thematic heights. Like for instance, the first season, for as absurd as it was, wound up highlighting these acute things about human interaction as well as Nathan's own alienation. For this new season, Fielder went hard on the sincerity. It starts out almost completely serious, almost asking the viewer to withhold their instant need for comedy. The show does aim to raise genuine awareness for the causes behind airline disasters, and so Fielder does correspond with some very senior people in that airline space. You see, he's clearly done a lot of comprehensive research and it's very important to him, so he doesn't want to waste anyone's time. And that's another thing with The Rehearsal, is that yeah, there are a lot of skits and shenanigans going on, but behind it all is a deep, authentic caring for the people involved. Like in season 1, for as funny as it was to witness these odd, real-life characters behave in these strange ways, the show still treated them with an ample degree of compassion. Like, I wouldn't view what Nathan is doing as totally exploitative. He conducts these absurd experiments that would never occur in real life to reveal things about people and psychology that we wouldn't usually see. It's an absurdity that shakes things up and exposes all kinds of odd things. I'd call it a perverse rearrangement of everyday conventions. And this also ties into the underlying story that sort of plays out across all of his works really, which is that as you witness this man, Nathan Fielder, conduct all of these insane experiments all in the pursuit of fixating on mundane social interaction, it all starts to reflect on him. It almost becomes a documentary just about his character. We start to see into his social alienation, his insecurities. A gradual picture is painted of a man who feels disconnected from other people, who yearns for warm social interaction, or just any form of warm, genuine human connection, and it's a connection that he never is able to attain apparently. He creates all of these artificial scenarios to simulate these feelings of love, tenderness and kinship, but all of these efforts only prove to act as inferior, sad substitutes for the real thing. And this is a theme that's been present from all the way back in Nathan For You.
I love you.
Again.
I love you.
Again.
I love you.
And this persona that he's been putting on throughout his body of work, this character that he's been playing, is indeed a character, but it is also an exaggerated version of himself. How much exaggeration is at play is up for interpretation, like how different is he from his normal self. Yet it still goes to say that, like any other filmmaker, everything he creates is reflective of his inner psyche, and this sort of journey that this fictitious version of himself is going on sort of acts as a reoccurring storyline in the show. It's almost a character study journey, a character arc you could say, and all in all it lends a tremendous thematic value to a show that is fundamentally a documentary. Nathan's art shares a lot in common with the online reality show Fish Tank, which I've already talked about a lot on this channel, namely in how the showrunners interweave a synchronistic thematic identity with strictly documentative footage. You begin to enjoy these showcases of reality as almost heartfelt, fictitious storylines. The two pieces of media do act as very good companion pieces, I must say. I also like to imagine that Nathan Fielder must have taken partial inspiration from Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York, just due to how they both have protagonists obsessively construct these grandiose recreations of reality, all in this desperate attempt to grasp some meaning from the world. Although it has been some time since I last saw Synecdoche, New York, so perhaps that comparison isn't quite appropriate.
The nice thing is, sometimes all it takes is a change in perspective to make the world feel brand new.
Personally, I gain a lot of catharsis from watching the rehearsal because I deeply relate to the character that Nathan Fielder is putting on in the show. This side of him that almost feels as though he has a component missing in his brain that makes him unable to interact with humans properly or form meaningful connections with other people. I do view myself as a fairly awkward and weird guy. In fact, ever since having discovered Nathan Fielder, I always picture myself as him in certain situations. Like when I feel I'm being awkward in a social environment, I always just imagine myself as Nathan Fielder. Oh, what should I say to these new people? Should I make a certain type of joke that's very broad and has like an 80% chance that they'll chuckle or nose air laugh?
Every joke is a gamble. Shoes off or?
Oh, please, walk as is.
Okay. Shirt off or? Just kidding. I'll leave my shirt on.
I do think about the minutiae of all of these basic bitch human interactions, and I'm not trying to say that in like a nasty way, just when you start to analyse everyday shit and notice a formula. But overall, a very introspective show for Nathan Fielder and a very introspective show for myself.
So far it was going well, and it had to.
It's no surprise that in the middle of this season you find out that the first season of Rehearsal deeply resonated with autistic people. In fact, I've often genuinely thought that Nathan Fielder may be autistic himself. Now obviously when an artist makes the work partially about himself, it can become a little indulgent, but I never felt that watching his stuff. He doesn't get lost up his own ass, and the stuff he does disclose about himself is fascinating. Ties in with the themes of the overall show too.
Do you want to feel something real?
Yeah.
That's sad.
I preface again that Nathan hasn't gone into this solely from a whimsical standpoint because he is genuinely intent on improving airline safety. His hypothesis about the effects that social and conversational hang-ups can have on a pilot and co-pilot's performance during a flight is valid. Through the examination we see on the show, we actually get a deep insight into the work culture of pilots and their psychology. It was super interesting to learn about all that, so in that sense the show functioned like a true documentary. It was particularly fascinating learning about how pilots can have their licenses revoked if they're diagnosed with a particular mental issue, so they never talk about their emotions or feelings because they do not want to risk their career. They don't go to therapy, they don't resolve issues within themselves, they just pretend to be stoic and all together. I always naively assumed that pilots were well adjusted and of sound mind. Again, despite how ludicrous its methods are, the show still manages to teach us interesting things. Another notable thing about the show is it's quite improvisational in ways, so we'd have these mad tangents and every episode you'd have no idea what to expect, and I loved it for that. For instance, part of the central idea of the season is that co-pilots are too afraid to correct the errors of the captains because they lack the assertive skills. So to train the co-pilots to be more assertive, Nathan creates a whole American Idol style talent show where the pilots are the judges. The logic is that judges always have to deliver bad news to people and they have to be fairly assertive and blunt. So then the season about airline disasters goes off on this talent show tangent. Nathan Fielder starts gathering data on which of the pilots are the best judges. At another point he draws parallels between having the confidence to kiss a girl at the end of the first date to having the confidence to assert yourself to your captain. There's one particular tangent where Nathan recounts a story pertaining to Paramount Plus taking down an episode of Nathan For You, a Nathan For You episode that spread Holocaust awareness, albeit through a humorous lens. The reason he recounts announced this is because this was an example of him lacking the assertion to effectively confront the people at Paramount Plus about this censorship. He stages a whole rehearsal of a meeting with a Paramount executive and he depicts them as Nazis. It was all kind of a revenge skit on Nathan's behalf, basically telling Paramount to go fuck themselves. I think it actually goes a lot deeper than that because there's an implication that there was some anti-Semitism going on. Nathan Fielder is of course Jewish, and that's also a recurring theme in his work. I'd say that the overall balancing of sincerity and funniness is done quite well. Things never felt conflicting or jarring, and there is a lot of serious subject matter brought up in the show, and it never felt as though it was making light of that. In fact, another core theme of this season is Nathan trying to partially separate himself from his comedic persona. In some instances, he does want people to take him seriously because he does wind up speaking to members of Congress. He has a genuine devotion to this cause, and his rehearsals are somewhat useful in that respect. Useful for learning about the lives of pilots. There's still plenty of insanity though, don't worry. I mean, that entire episode relating to Sullenberger was utterly farcical. Experimental and creative, but farcical. That was the show temporarily going all out on the absurdist comedy just so Nathan could relieve himself, I think. Like the baby room and all that stuff, like it is incredible what they made there. It looks awesome, but fucking hell. I really hope Fielder doesn't have some kind of fetish for this. Also, imagine being Sully and seeing this. I mean, I don't know if he's alive, but still. Going back to the serious angle, I do respect how sincerely Nathan played those moments too. His devotion to this mission can't be disputed, all that time, money and research he put towards it. In the finale it's revealed that at a prior date he himself began training as a pilot, and that just reinforces how earnestly committed he is to this cause. It's incredible what he did. He conducts that penultimate rehearsal where he actually flies a plane full of passengers, I mean actors pretending to be passengers, as again it's all a rehearsal, a simulation. He means to use the footage from the flight as a demonstration of his hypothesis to members of Congress. The conclusion being that when a pilot and co-pilot effectively communicate, the plane departs and arrives without any hiccups. How influential this will be when it comes to improving flight safety overall remains to be seen. How beneficial it actually is, I'm not remotely qualified to say. Pretty good finale though. Plot twist, the presenter is a trained pilot.
It was difficult at first to inhabit the mind of a baby. I know so much more than babies do.
At the end of episode 6, he goes on this monologue about how you're only allowed in the cockpit if you're mentally sound, so if you're allowed there, you must be fine. It's this sort of justifying to himself that he's this well-adjusted person just because he's now a pilot, even though we know from earlier in the show that pilots frequently lie about their mental health to keep their pilot's license. There's no acknowledgement of the possible mental issues that occur in the minds of these people. It's this unregulated domain that probably needs to be addressed. Season 2 sort of just ends on that somber, unresolved note, as if there's more to be done on the topic of the mental health of pilots. Obviously, this mental repression on behalf of the pilots kind of mirrors the mental repression that Nathan Fielder's persona in the show is always seeming to do. He's not a totally self-aware guy. Even he decided to ignore his medical results when it came to his mental health, though I assume that must be scripted. I hope it is, because that's a felony what he's done there, lying about his mental illness. Now, it was a stage scene probably put there to tie in thematically with the narrative of the show, this idea of repressing emotions, ignoring the truth. Again, like I said before, the Nathan Fielder we see in the show is a character, and he goes on this pseudo-character arc. This character we see is flawed and repeatedly deludes himself in false realities. He creates mock worlds to simulate artificial emotions so that he can feel better about himself. For instance, in the first season, he became obsessed with that fake family. And finally, that observation it makes that just because someone is a qualified pilot, that doesn't mean that they're all okay up here, and maybe we should look into that. Maybe something should be done, you know? Don't repress your emotions.
What the hell is wrong with you, son?
Obviously, this is a strong recommend from me. This is one of the best shows on television right now. It is a comedy show, but it didn't need to be constantly comedic for it to be fascinating. Some of the best aspects of this season occurred in the more serious moments. You have thematically heartfelt moments as well, well-timed authenticity amidst a sea of silliness. I think if you're in the UK, it is streaming on Now TV, I believe. I just used Magic to watch it, so yeah, I couldn't we don't have HBO Max over here. I got fucking sick and tired of not being able to see it, so I just went, you know what? I'm going to use magic. I'm going to use the Force. We use the Force.
And remember to fucking subscribe.
Honestly, I've been watching a lot of great TV shows at the moment. I mean, Andor Season 2 was incredible. Like, it cannot be understated. That was fucking amazing. Improved and expanded upon everything great about the first season. I absolutely loved it. Deeply thematically evocative. It gets emotional near the end. It got me. Just the best show of the fucking year, honestly. Also been watching Lars von Trier's The Kingdom, and that's great so far. Just finished Season 1. It's hard going in that it's like, just because the colour palette is so brown and miserable, and it's very like bleak in tone. It's not something you like watch out of comfort. You have to be prepared for it. So I'm not like binging that, but every now and then I put another episode on. For those wondering what's been going on with me, I've been working on an hour-long Wild at Heart video. So it's David Lynch's film, because I want to pay tribute to him because he passed away earlier in this year. That's been where the vast majority of my efforts have been going towards, so that's kind of explains why there hasn't been as many uploads in the last month. I could churn out a little review of a certain piece of media here and there, but I do like to have something significant to say, or I just want it to be interesting if I make a video on it. Like this, for instance, is a smaller video, but I've said quite a lot about what I love about this show. I am feeling this pressure to have a video out every Friday, but sometimes there's just nothing that tickles my fancy when it comes to ideas or like recent films, recent releases. Like, who cares? I don't really like skimming over topics. I like to settle down with something and really just take my time and just express all of my emotions and thoughts. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks to the patrons. Thank you DF, thank you Casey Gann, thank you Mason Lydon, thank you Matt Delaney.
You having a wank? You having a wank? You having a wank? You having a wank? You having a wank?
You disgusting fat
You
fuck.
having a wank? You having a wank? You having a wank? You having a wank?
Disgusting fat fuck.
You having a wank? You having a